Thank you very much, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here today and a pleasure to have the opportunity to address you on this subject. I'll be talking to you about OPG's plans for biomass. Just start with a little bit of background on Ontario Power Generation. As you, I'm sure know, Ontario Power Generation is a successor to Ontario Hydro. It took over the generation assets from Ontario Hydro when Ontario Hydro was split up 10 years ago. And continues to be owned by the province of Ontario. We generate about 70% of Ontario's electricity now. We have no transmission facilities, no retail functions. We're strictly a generation company. 11,000 employees, 21,000 megawatts of capacity. Gross revenue, you can see there, $6 billion. And an average price that OPG receives of about 5.6 cents per kilowatt hour, which is lower than the average price that you pay for electricity for the electricity content, the generation content in the electricity. So that's a bit of background on OPG. We have a diverse generation fleet. These are the coal plants, but the bulk of our generation comes from nuclear with significant hydroelectric as well. Our fossil generation has had over the last few years a reduced role in the profile. These are the remaining OPG coal plants. There are 4 of them, 2 in northwestern Ontario, Atikokan and Thunder Bay, and 2 very large plants in southwestern Ontario, Nanticoke and Lambton. And these are really the subject of the remainder of my presentation. The province of Ontario has made a decision that OPG would get out of the business of burning coal at these facilities by the end of 2014. So we're working on initiatives to look at how we do that and also what these facilities can be used for. This gives you a bit of background in relation to the history of the facilities and also in relation to where we're going as we go forward in the future with these facilities. This is a graph of carbon dioxide emissions from the facilities. The year 2000 was the largest production year ever for the coal plants, and you can see some declines in production since 2000 as more capacity of other types has come onto the market and some nuclear units have been refurbished. But you can also see that there's some forecast numbers here showing a further decline. And what's happened is the province has asked OPG on a voluntary basis for 2009 and 2010 to have reductions that are shown in green here in CO2 emissions, and then put a hard cap on OPG for the years 2011 through 2014. And that hard cap is about a third of our maximum historical production of CO2. And effectively, it translates to a reduction of about 2/3 in the generation those facilities produced over that time period. So, and then at the end of 2014, this would go to 0. So in response, one of the things that we're working on is the possibility of using biomass as a fuel at the coal plants. And we're talking about biomass as 100% of the fuel content and not being co-fired with coal. Possibility of using some natural gas, but unlike a lot of utilities that are looking at biomass to augment coal, we're looking at biomass as a 100% source, which means a number of things. It means a reduced role for the plants, for one thing, consistent with Dr. Maybe's previous presentation, where he talked about there being not enough biomass to fuel the plants, and that really reflects not enough biomass to fuel the plants in their historical mandate. So why biomass? And I think you know all of these things. It's renewable. Biomass can be used when you want it, unlike wind or solar electricity. Biomass is dispatchable. It can be used to meet the peak demands of the province and can be used and is a very useful generation source as a result of that. Biomass has greenhouse gas benefits. There's a great opportunity for Ontario industry, and in the case of this conference, we're talking the forest industry, but also for agriculture. Biomass, in this case, would make use of an existing asset that's owned by the people of Ontario in the coal plants, and an asset that still has some life left in it, and therefore it would be a shame to throw it away. So we've talked to the public in regard to biomass and got some input and feedback from the public about biomass. In general, the response has been favorable in the dialogue that we've had with the public. The public likes its renewability. They like the fact it's not coal. They like the greenhouse gas impact, and they like the Ontario economic benefits. If we look beyond that, the public has very significant demands as well in regard to biomass. They demand that biomass will be sustainable. So there's a very, very clear concern, particularly in regard to the forest resource of sustainable harvest, and also generally environmental responsibility. And there's a concern on the agricultural side that biomass not impact the food supply. So these are things that I think that are going to be important to all of us as we look forward in the biomass industry and biomass potential in future, making sure that we are achieving sustainability and making sure that we are not substantially impacting any other resource use. This is a graphic of the biomass carbon life cycle. The graphic's intended to illustrate the carbon neutrality of biomass, where carbon's absorbed, CO2 is absorbed in the plants as they grow, biomass is harvested, and carbon's released as it's burned. So as long as the total growth in a region, for example, is equal to or exceeds the biomass combusted, then effectively you've got a sustainable life cycle. And this is particularly critical, again, when you get to the public perceptions on biomass and the need for greenhouse gas neutrality as part of that perception. OPG sponsored a study at the University of Toronto in regard to the use of wood pellets in our facilities and looking at greenhouse gas neutrality associated with wood pellets in our facilities and the greenhouse gas impact. And this graphic shows a comparison of coal, natural gas, and biomass, and the greenhouse gas impact of the different fuel cycles for electricity generation. Effectively, the purplish bar reflects the generation of CO2 in the electricity production cycle, in the combustion cycle, on a net basis, and the blue part of the bar reflects the upstream elements, the fossil fuels that are used in harvesting and transportation and processing. So you can see that biomass, in terms of atacoke on wood or nanocoke on wood, is substantially better than the greenhouse gas impact of coal, even though there are significant upstream impacts in the harvesting and transportation. Okay, this talks to what we're looking at with regard to biomass. OPG has a fleet of, right now, 15 coal units. We've announced that we're closing 4 of those units next year, 2 at Lambton and 2 at Nanacoke. That will leave 11 units. We're not contemplating converting all of those 11 units to biomass. We're contemplating converting potentially some of those units to biomass and using those units differently, as I said earlier, in terms of the production from them being peakier in nature than it has historically been. We're expecting at the end of the day to have likely more than 1,000 megawatts of biomass fuel generation. We're working on the different fuel cycles that can be there to replace coal. We are not contemplating co-firing with coal, as I said earlier. We would look at the potential to co-fire with natural gas. So effectively what we're proposing is a clean, much cleaner and greener approach to electricity generation. So we've got a number of pieces of project scope that are in progress with regard to the biomass initiative. We've completed concept studies for the Atacocan generating station, and we have studies in progress for other sites. We've done a safe handling and storage analysis. We're doing a lot of work on combustion analysis and ash analysis, particularly in regard to agricultural products, which pose some challenges in regard to combustion and ash. We're working on our fuel spec development. We're working on environmental permitting at this point. So Atikokan is the first focus. Our plan is to have Atikokan in service in 2012 at some point. It will be our first unit to be converted. It can achieve, we believe, full electrical output on biomass by virtue of its boiler design, so it could achieve full load. We would expect that it would have that capability, but would not run all that much. So we're looking only for about 100,000 tons a year for pellets, fuel pellets for Atikokan, and that would correspond to less than 5% of the peak harvest 2005-2006 in terms of the wood resource, the biofiber resource in northwestern Ontario. And as I said earlier, engineering work on this project is in progress. This lists a few of the basic requirements for fuel. We're looking for pelletized fuel. We want it to be Ontario sourced and processed. We don't want to be buying waste products because of the permitting and environmental complications. We need to minimize the life cycle greenhouse gas impact, and therefore we will be looking for sustainably produced product. And we're also reviewing the potential at other plants, Thunder Bay, Nanticoke, and Lambton. Wood fiber is a likely fuel, Thunder Bay, some combination of agricultural and wood at Lambton and Nanticoke, and again, working through the engineering aspects of it. So in summary, we believe that this is a great opportunity for Ontario, and it's an opportunity to continue using OPG's assets that have been purchased by the people of Ontario. Thank you very much.